I remember hospice saying to me, I need you to fill out this form on where you want the body to go. And I cried really hard about that. I remember her asking for it several times. And I finally just said, like, look, I'm not filling that out. Like, I actually cannot fill that out.
And then we were like, okay, well, we're going to get a second opinion.
A Florida family struggled after learning their baby had a rare brain condition.
We actually didn't find out until she was 2 months old that she had this diagnosis.
When she was born, she was stuck. We held her and we took her home, and we thought everything was fine except where she got stuck on her shoulder.
And it was actually when we went in for an MRI of her shoulder that they noticed that something was off with the base of her brain.
And if you look at images of her brain, you'll see that there's like nothing there. It's completely missing. They said, we need to do an MRI of her brain right away. And it all comes back with alobar holoprosencephaly. There's different stages, and this is the most severe kind.
The head neurologist or whoever it was came in and he was like, I need to sit down and like tell you what this is. And he said, with this diagnosis, you have 4 to 6 months to live. And she was already 2 months old. And he said that she wouldn't be much more than in a vegetated state.
Alobar holoprosencephaly is a rare congenital brain disorder that causes the fetal brain to not properly separate into the right and left hemispheres, according to the Cleveland Clinic.
It's basically where the brain does not fully develop. The alobar type is the more severe type. Roughly 1 in 15,000 live births are born with this. However, the majority don't actually make it to full term. They're going to be miscarried or, via stillbirth. And the ones that are born alive of the alobar type, only about 5 to 10% actually survive past a year. They're typically going to be needing life support. They're going to be struggling with breathing, regulating heart rate, just regulating all the vitals. Definitely not having any kind of voluntary movement, not able to have joint attention or really engage with parents and others. That general concept of decline.
We definitely felt the sadness. We definitely mourned all of that. I think there was a lot of fear on my end, at least. Like, what does that mean? We were sent home on hospice on Halloween. My mom was there at the time and she said, if this is really her only Halloween, then we're leaving and we're celebrating. And I was like, you heard the woman, like, we're out, we cried the whole night. We walked around and trick-or-treated in our matching family costumes, and Bill and I just cried the whole walk.
The family was introduced to Dr. Brandon Crawford. He's a functional neurologist near Austin, Texas, who specializes in using non-invasive techniques.
I reached out and I said, what would you do with someone with this diagnosis? So he was like, come and we'll see what we can do.
He looked at her, spoke with us.
And so then Bill pulled up the images.
And he was looking at them and he just walked out of the room. He just left.
He was like, no. We were like, yes. And he's like, this is why it's so important that you evaluate the person before you evaluate the scans and all the stuff, because the only time he's ever seen someone's brain even remotely close to the severity of Millie's,
they were in a completely vegetative state.
Yeah. And he said, I know you think you understand how much of a miracle Millie is, but you really don't. Like, she is just such a miracle. She has every part of her brain that she needs, not fully developed, but she has a part of every part of her brain that she needs developmentally.
Dr. Crawford decided to take on Millie's case.
When you look at Millie herself, she's developing, she's trying to do things, she's doing right. She was not on the decline. And so that was telling me that her brain has so much potential. She's doing things that she shouldn't be doing. A good reference is vision, right? She doesn't have the visual pathways intact, yet she can see. And that's just understanding the brain's ability to mold and change. I'm looking at this baby and I'm looking at these parents and they're saying, look, all these doctors are telling us to prepare for her death, to get on hospice care, to not do anything. But she's trying to live, she's trying to thrive, she's trying to do these things. This doesn't make sense to us. And I said, well, honestly, it doesn't make sense to me either. Hey, I'm willing to try. I see from a functional perspective that there's really good potential here.
You gonna get me?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You gonna get me? Oh, goodness.
Millie's first treatment with Dr. Crawford was extensive.
In functional neurology, we're actually taking a more integrative and dynamic approach. We're focusing on how the nervous system is functioning. We're evaluating subtle changes in the brain and the nervous system's performance that may not really show on imaging. We're looking for what's not really working properly and how can we restore or enhance it.
Amazing. You'll be done with that.
Do you have a Band-Aid or you need something?
So we have a developmental exam and we look at sensory systems, primitive reflexes, postural reflexes, core stability, vestibular function, eye movements, and cognition. And then that literally defines the care for that individual.
You're doing great, Millie. You're doing so great.
So based on the developmental exam, we needed to focus on integrating sensory systems, so helping Millie actually be able to feel her body. One of the biggest things that we do is photobiomodulation. We're using different types of lasers, and this actually enhances the brain's ability to mold and develop. It increases things like growth factors. It increases energy in the cell so that the cells can do whatever they need to do better. Photobiomodulation just helps our body and our brain function more optimally. So I'm trying to accelerate neuroplasticity as much as possible so that we can get the desired outcomes as soon as possible.
The treatment is very costly.
I think it's just under $10,000 a week. It's $515 an hour. Yeah, and we do 18-hour weeks. It's about $40,000 a visit.
Millie's family paid for the first set of treatments through the generosity of others.
So we went the first time thanks to incredibly generous, donations. And when we got home, we had a debt. We owed them money for our second trip still. And we were like, how would we ever get back again? And he told us, you guys have to come back.
A stranger stepped in to help.
I had asked, will everyone just pray over Millie before we go in there? So we finished the prayer and we went in and we did the procedure. And when we were leaving, I saw Sarah Crawford, Dr. Crawford's wife, walking down the hall, and she was like, go back in the room, go back in the room. And we were like, why? We're done, She said, not even 5 minutes ago, I got off the phone with an anonymous donor who has covered your entire bill, what you owed previously and what you owe for this trip.
It's going to be completely paid for, everything.
What?
Yes, all. Oh my gosh.
And I've never felt like I was going to pass out before until that moment. Do you ever get to that point of excitement where you're just like, I can't cry? There's no, we're past tears. That's where I think we were at. We were just like, this can't be real. That night we woke up several times being like, was that just a dream or did that really happen?
It was amazing, and it doesn't surprise me after I found out who it was because I know this individual. She's also a patient in the practice. And just to be honest, this was not the first patient that she's paid for. She has been just so gracious, so loving. She's an amazing individual. She has a son with cerebral palsy as well. So she has a bleeding heart, you know what I mean? She's a mom that's been through it all, and she's just an amazing individual.
You guys are seen. You are loved.
There is a bigger plan in motion that we're all a part of.
Who gets $47,000 just dropped in their lap? How do you say thank you to someone for that? There's not a way.
I can't understand it and I can't make sense of it that a stranger would care about that. So
To cry.
well, it's a lot to try to, you just try to process it and you can't.
Millie has a really big purpose, and God made that very clear. We are so blessed by her blessing our child, and Millie's story getting out there is such a blessing for us too, for people to hear the hope and the joy that her life brings.
And that there's options.
You know what, Millie? If you're going to be on film, we should snap your outfit.
Since getting treatments, Millie has come a long way.
Millie is just amazing. She is such living proof of how neuroplasticity can completely take hold and just completely shape a life in ways that we never thought were possible. She's crawling, scooting all around the house on her scooter board. She's continuing to develop. She's thriving. She's learning to crawl. She's learning to talk. She's doing all these things, right? That's very abnormal for this diagnosis.
It's just been crazy to see the changes. Like, we can see major physical changes in her every time we go. Someone giving that giant donation is a huge miracle, but Millie's life is a miracle.
The family is continuing to raise money for Millie's care, and everyone is hopeful she will continue to flourish.
I'm confident that she will have the ability to go to school, to interact with others, to live a life. I'm confident in that.
I've said it 100 times before, like, there's just not a price we would put on her life. So we will keep pushing forward and doing what we have to do to help her. It is ongoing treatment. It is something that we have to do every 3 to 4 months to keep her developing and getting stronger. We get to see each phase of her getting stronger and each phase of her getting further and further along. And it's just such a blessing. We really hope and pray that Millie's story can bring hope and joy to other people.
For more information on Millie, visit movingmountainsformillie.org. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Andrea Swindle.